parts of the industry, but I don't want to go down that specific route. Rajiv, if I can ask you that question as well, because we continue to talk about the government should incentivize electric vehicles, the government should provide this sort of a subsidy, the government should hold back emission norms and so on and so forth, because India is not ready to comply with the European standards and so on and so forth. I'm just setting out an argument for you. How do we actually prevent policy making from becoming shackled to corporate interests, which seems to be the case in India, and we've got several instances across sectors?
Give you a small example and then what I think could be a way forward. Bajaj is today the largest three-wheeler maker in the world. And as much as I was popular with the scooter, I was the butt of many jokes with the three-wheeler. Because everybody around me used to say, ये क्या गाड़ी है, ये कैसी दिखती है, इसमें 3 पहिए है, इसमें छत नहीं है, दरवाजे नहीं है, ये नहीं है, वो नहीं है. So everybody used to wonder, what is this thing that Bajaj makes in such large numbers? So I thought I would do my company a big favor by putting a 4th wheel on it, by putting 4 doors on it, by putting seat belts on it, by putting a roof on it, and create a little 4-wheeler that in India or in other markets, similar markets of the world, would help people to move up to something that is safer and more comfortable. But even after 3 years of developing the product and investing in it, and my first point of submission of this idea was actually Mr. Pilot when I went and met him at his home and sought his advice on how to go about executing this. I am still waiting for clearance while selling lots of three-wheelers, waiting for policy clearance to introduce a safe, comfortable, pretty 4-wheeler. So this is the problem in policy making. Now, what is the way forward? I will give you just a very generic example. See, 3 years back, while doing yoga, I hurt my back very badly. And for 3 weeks, I was laid up in bed. I couldn't move. Now, I had 2 choices. The surgeon wanted to operate because he said that you have a problem, the standard disc and vertebra and that kind of stuff. So I have to get into your spine, fix your spine, and then you can walk again. I called up Guruji B.K.S. Iyengar, who was alive then, and he said, you come to me, I will fix you in 2 hours. And I was really scared because even at the age of 95, he was a tough taskmaster. And in all the pain that I was, I really did not want to submit myself to him. But I was even more scared of surgery, so I decided to go to Guruji. 2 hours of yoga with him, and when I stood up from the class, I was fine. I couldn't believe it. And he told me something, so much so that I could not get into my own car before that. And when I came down, I could just, slide into the car. So I asked Guruji, what is this difference between surgery and yoga? He said, see, surgery comes from the West. It is based on the concept. It's simplistic, but I just share it with you, that function follows structure. If you put the structure right, it will start functioning right. In a company, if you fix the organization structure, the company will do its job correctly. In the country, if you fix the structure of things, of the bureaucracy will start working correctly. So he says surgery comes from that belief, that function follows structure. He says our Eastern logic is that structure should follow function. In other words, function dictates structure. I have made you twist, bend, reach forward, stretch, hang upside down. I have made you function as you're supposed to function. Don't worry, your body will align itself and you will be fine. So I have found in my experience at work, don't go into all this management jargon and buzzwords and all the rubbish that these consultants talk. Just do your work with a clear purpose. Just function correctly. And therefore, I think even in policy making, etc., we have to start bottom up. I know I'm taking too much time, but let me give you an example. I was once part of the auto delegation that went to one of these big ministry buildings. Dr. C.P. Joshi of the earlier government was the minister in charge. He called a meeting. We went there. I got up halfway through the meeting to use the restroom. I almost threw up. You know, a government that cannot keep its toilet clean cannot run the country. You know, that's the thought that went through my mind. So what I want to say is, let's start doing the basics. The more we function right, the policies will become right. If we try to fix the policy first, the function will never happen right. That's what I feel.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Aditya. Well, you managed to upset CII at the start, and now the entire consulting world as well, Rajiv. All right, Aditya, over to you.
Well, you know, I'm worse off. I never even went to business school, so I don't even understand consultants. So, you know.
You're a lawyer, you manage just fine.
I think the same goes, Rajiv and I'm in complete agreement with Rajiv. Even in our own organizations, let alone business, you know, in our own organizations, and at least I'm talking about Indigo, I don't know about any other business or company. We are obsessed with what is our big objective in coming and doing here. We came up with a simple thing in 2005, that our objective in life is to prove that low cost has nothing to do with low quality. Everything we do at Indigo is determined around that. The kind of structure, the kind of product, what we do, the way we dress, what cars we drive, what offices we have, everything is just around this equation or trying to prove that low cost has nothing to do with low quality. And coming to structures, I mean, Rajiv and I have had this conversation before. I truly believe like it's like, you know, the human body, the organization or a government is like the human body. As we get older, and I was talking to Ms. Reddy about this, that as we get older, you know, it's a natural fact of life that, you know, you'll become slower and you'll become less, you know, arteries start getting clogged and this, that, and the other. By just writing one vision statement or writing one big, you know, kind of Independence Day speech doesn't mean that your body is now going to start functioning. You know, one New Year resolution, I'm going to be healthy this year, doesn't mean you're going to be healthy on 31st of December. Just like the human body, you have to get up in the morning and make an effort and go for a run and watch what you eat and so on and so forth to declog those arteries. In an organization as well, we must consistently declog those arteries, not to move away from what their original purpose was. And that honesty of purpose will always keep determining what the rest of the stuff that we do. You know?
And that perhaps is the problem, Sachin. And while, you know, the government has failed and successive governments have failed abysmally on the culture of execution. And that continues to be a big challenge, which is why you had projects worth several lakhs of crores held up under the UPA. We now have the Prime Minister setting up something called Pragati, which will monitor timely execution of projects and so on and so forth. Why is it that we cannot do our function? Forget policy making, but why is it that we cannot do our day-to-day operations? Why is it that individual ministries don't talk to each other? Is it a territorial issue? Why is it that we make it easier for the bureaucrats to not do what is in the best interest of the country and then blame the bureaucrats for not doing what they ought to have done? Why has successive government failed on the execution front?
Well, if we had the answer to that question, we'd be in a different place right now.
But do you want the answers is the question, Sachin. Are politicians
even,
I mean, you know the solution, but are you even acknowledging the fact that you need to move towards that?
No, absolutely. There is no debate on what you just said. The only submission I'm making to you is that it's not about, do you know the answer to this problem? It's all there for us. We know what the solutions are, but how to get there? You think any government, whether it's mine or some other government, will want to stall projects on purpose? Why would you want to wish yourself ill? I mean, we're all selfish political parties. We want to have more projects, more jobs, more investments. There is an inherent problem in our system. Now, it's easy to blame politicians and bureaucrats, but you must understand our democracy is so overly democratic that from the panchayat level to the block to the district to the state to the center, there are multiple stakeholders with diverse interests in the same thing. Now, when you work at cross purposes, no amount of diligency and file noting and decision making and allocation of funds can make that happen. You know, both of them talked about the functionality being the biggest aspect. I think it's easier to do that on an individual level, at a company level, but a little bit more difficult to do it at a macro level. You know, we have 1.2 billion people with so much diversity, except the fact that we all like Bollywood movies and like cricket. There's very little that connects, you know, a Malayali person living in Kerala to a, you know, a Muslim person living in Badgaon in Kashmir. Their interests, their priorities, their way of functioning, their language, their food items, everything is different. So to think that the nation can move at the same pace is a little difficult. That's why we have plurality. That's why we have so many political parties. I think it's a bit of a drag on what we want to do. But listen, compare ourselves to some of the other countries. You know, it's okay to say that we're punching below our weight, we could do much more. It's good to have that dissatisfaction because otherwise you won't grow. But think about what we have and what we cherish as our independence, our freedom, our liberty, our democracy, for whatever it is. It's not the best in the world, but it's certainly something we should really take pride in. But we have to balance it. I think a new generation with a new curiosity and eagerness to prove and to perform, we'll cross the hump. But we might take, a bit longer than what everybody wants to do here with instant coffee and press of the button. And it may not happen because this country, and I've seen from the insides, it's little difficult to get everybody moving at the same pace. Therefore, patience is certainly, and perseverance. If we have these two things, I think we can get the structure and the functionality to come hand in hand in due course.
Okay. The other issue I want to talk about, and Rajiv, let's start by asking you, because fostering a culture of innovation is what we discussed. And if you want to build world-class enterprises and you want to build world-class brands, it would have to be built on the foundation of innovation, disruption, adaptation, all of the things that the three of you spoke about. Unfortunately, once again, I come back to when you talk to industry about innovation, around every budget, people will say the government needs to give us so much as far as R&D incentivization is concerned. The government should give us this in terms of offset. Is innovation linked to government policy? Have Indian companies not understood the importance of building IPR, of investing in R&D? And do you think that this is going to be something that will hold Indian enterprises back if we continue to wait for government to take the lead as far as innovation is concerned?
Shereen, I would lean on what I said in response to your last question, that policy cannot come before innovation. There cannot be a policy that if you make a razor blade with 5 blades in it, it will give you a better shave, and then somebody will go and make it. First, Gillette puts in 5 blades, and then there may be a policy that comes after that. In the same way, I cannot wait for a policy that a 4-wheeled vehicle is desirable on Indian roads instead of a 3-wheeled vehicle. I have to push the envelope. I have to stay in my center and stretch from there and make a 4-wheeled vehicle and then push or plead at the right places and make the case for something that is better. So the effort has to come from inside. As I said, we have to be more vital from inside and make things happen. Now, I do take the point that, as Mr. Pilot said, that it's not so easy to align the vectors, on the bigger scale of things. But I think you would find it interesting to hear this story. I grappled with the same issue in my company when we wanted to move from making scooters for India to making motorcycles for the world. There were some people in the company that wanted to make a mass product. Some people wanted to make a niche product. Some people wanted to make an expensive one. Some people wanted to make a cheap one, so on and so forth. Some people wanted to make a fast one. Some people wanted to make a fuel-efficient one. So I was once with someone who's been here and addressed you, Shah Rukh Khan, and I once asked Shah Rukh, "Yaar, ye bada problem hai ki different people want to make a different kind of motorcycle. I don't know how to solve this problem." And he showed me a book that he had just finished reading, written by some famous director, film director. I don't remember the name. He says this guy is the best director in the world. He's been making movies for the last 60 years. And he says, at the end, he ends his book by saying this thing, that if there is one lesson I have learned after 60 years of making films, is that we will only make a great film if we are all making the same film. And it just hit me, that Bajaj will only make a great bike if everybody in Bajaj is making the same bike. So whether it's roads or toilets or telecom or FDI or insurance or whatever it is, we are only going to build a great country if we are all building the same country. But every day we are seeing that different people are trying to build a different country. And I think that is the problem.
Well, as Sachin pointed out, hopefully we will see the opposition not play a role of obstructionist needlessly. I think you need to have opposition talk about issues that need to be challenged in Parliament, but hopefully we won't see needless obstruction, especially on matters like the GST. We're pretty much out of time. If I could take 2 questions from the audience. If you could raise your hands, we'll try and get a microphone across to you. Lots of hands there, sir. You're right on the front row. If you can ask your question specifically to whoever you want to address that to on the panel.
Thank you. Can you hear me on the mic? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Shereen. So I don't really have questions. I just want to make quick observations. And one of the
question, sir, question. We thought we're all on the same page here. I asked for a question. If you don't have a question, I'm going to give it to somebody else.
So I have one question. Let me just ask that. I think innovation is going to be one of the biggest reasons because of which India will progress. I think we want to put in a whole bunch of thought on that one particular topic. What do we plan to do about this one topic? We have to become the world's center, somewhat like what Germany is. Are we envisioning India like that? Are our industrialists thinking of India in that manner? Thank you.
Okay, since you said industrialists, let me start with you, Aditya. Are we fostering a culture of innovation? And you're probably doing it individually within our companies, but we're talking about a national policy for innovation. We're talking about innovation councils and so on and so forth. But what does it really mean on the ground?
Well, again, necessity is the mother of invention. So therefore, again, if there is a policy that says we will suddenly start becoming innovative, I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. Each one of us in our own individual businesses will find a sudden necessity to really, to solve for a problem, and we will solve for it. And we should stop thinking about, or at least my perspective is, rather than thinking of that one next billion-dollar idea, think of small little things and not be ashamed of it. Billions of people have walked up a staircase and walked down a staircase. And then comes this airline which puts 2 inclined ramps together and makes it into a boarding ramp. And that makes passengers go into an airplane and out of an airplane a little bit more comfortable. It's a ramp that costs 5 lakh rupees. And that's innovative enough, nobody else in the world does it. So it's only a question, but I keep saying once you have a success, absolutely celebrate that success in whatever way we can. Human beings more than money and power are looking for fame. We must celebrate success.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Do we have a microphone here somewhere? Yes, go ahead. A question, please. There's somebody already at the back, sir. Sorry. If you can just stand up, sir. Yes, please.
My name is Dr. Juneja. I think sometimes the private sector tend to be very exploitative.
Exploited or...
Exploitative.
Okay.
Question my Ghosh, Mr. Ghosh, sorry. The other day I was supposed to travel to Amritsar, and I had to buy a ticket of 12,000 rupees, only 1 hour flight, and return ticket 31,000 rupees. Don't you think it's crazy? And sometimes I find...
Thankfully, sir, we don't fly to Amritsar, so it must be some other airline.
All right. Yes, sir, go ahead.
My name is A.K. Sethi. Among the very eminent speakers here, I would like to emphasize, when we are talking about policy action required to bring and attract capital, talent, and technology, and then immediately we expect our position to be world's best in manufacturing and services.
Yes.
Is it at par, these 2 things, so rapidly?
Okay. Who wants to take that?
The question is.
You want to repeat your question, sir?
I didn't understand the question.
In a line, please. In just one line, what is the point that you want answered?
Say, my leader is here. I would like, when we are emphasizing policy action required to bring and attract capital, talent, and technology,
right,
and immediately and rapidly we expect our position to be world's best in manufacturing and services,
okay,
how far these 2 things are at par?
Expectation running ahead of reality.
Mr. Sethi, I think in the last 1 year, on the index of ease of doing business, in 2014 we were 140. Now we're 142. So we actually come down 2 notches. But the intent must match the on-the-ground delivery. And I think that's the point you're making, that by professing that you want innovation, investment, etc., it must be seen on the ground. I think 1 year has passed. I think it's a little bit early to pass large judgments, but the indications are that more needs to be done to see those transformations on the ground. And it's not going to happen just because you and I say it or someone else says it, but it must be delivered, on the ground in India. And you will see, I think, the politicians making commitments while campaigning and while asking for votes. And now people today, because of communication and so much internet and television, mobile telephony, will ask those pertinent questions in due course, not just you and me. So these questions will be asked very frequently now in time to come, Shereen.
Okay, so more accountability for politicians. Unfortunately, sir, we're completely out of time. I've already been sent a message saying that we've run over by about 10 minutes or so. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you very much for joining us. I think the bottom line is, we talked about a whole bunch of things from adaptation to innovation to policy keeping pace with innovation or innovation running ahead of policy. But I think the bottom line really is that we need to be clear about who we are. I think clarity and honesty of purpose will really determine the fate and the destiny of this country and our enterprises. Appreciate you joining us here this morning. Thank you very much.
If I could just request you all to kindly remain seated for 1 more minute. Thank you all the panelists for sharing your views with us today. I would now request Conclave Chairman and Chairman RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Mr. Sanjeev Goenka, to kindly present mementos to our esteemed panelists. I'd like to thank Mr. Sachin Pilot, President, Rajasthan State Congress and former Union Minister. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Rajiv Bajaj, Managing Director, Bajaj Auto Limited. Our thanks to Mr. Aditya Ghosh, President, Indigo, InterGlobe Aviation.